car prices are setting a new record. A new report shows the average price for a new car is more than $50,000 for the first time ever.
Something is quietly breaking in the truck market right now, and almost nobody is talking about it the way they should be. If you just drive past a dealership, everything looks normal. Rows of shiny trucks, banners advertising new models, salespeople walking around like business is as usual. But if you slow down and really look, you'll notice something strange. The same trucks are still sitting there week after week. Inventory isn't moving. Dealers aren't celebrating sales anymore. They're managing damage. Because trucks that used to disappear within days are now sitting for months. And not because people don't want trucks anymore, but because something deeper has changed. The psychology of the buyer has shifted, and once that happens, it doesn't reverse overnight. Just a few years ago, buyers were desperate. They were paying above sticker price, competing with each other, waiting months just to get a delivery. Now those same buyers are hesitating, stepping back, questioning everything. And when hesitation enters a market built on confidence, momentum collapses fast. This isn't about one bad model or one company making mistakes. This is a system-wide reset. Prices went too high, expectations went too far, and now reality is pulling everything back down. And the clearest way to see that shift is through the trucks that dealers are struggling to sell right now, not because they're terrible vehicles, but because they represent everything that went wrong in the market over the last few years. Take the Hyundai Santa Cruz, for example. On paper, it was supposed to be smart, almost like a calculated move into a new category. A smaller, more efficient truck for modern lifestyles, something urban buyers could use without the size and fuel cost of a full pickup. But what looked smart in theory didn't translate in reality. Because truck buyers are not just buying utility, they're buying identity. They want something that feels strong, capable, and clearly defined. The Santa Cruz exists in a space where it tries to be multiple things at once, and in doing so, it fails to fully satisfy any one type of buyer. It's not cheap enough to attract budget shoppers, not powerful enough to attract traditional truck buyers, and not unique enough to justify its compromise. So what happens is not rejection, but indifference. And indifference is worse than rejection because it means people don't even consider it. Dealers are left with inventory that doesn't excite, doesn't create urgency, and doesn't give buyers a reason to act now instead of later. And when urgency disappears, sales slow down naturally. Now compare that to the Nissan Titan and the story becomes more final. Because this isn't about confusion, it's about defeat. Nissan tried for years to compete in the full-size truck segment, going up against giants like Ford Motor Company, General Motors, and Stellantis, but the Titan never found its footing. It wasn't terrible, it just wasn't compelling enough to pull buyers away from brands that already dominated the space. And in markets like this, being good enough is not enough. Eventually, Nissan made the decision to shut it down, and once that announcement hit, the remaining demand collapsed even further. Because now buyers weren't just evaluating the truck, they were evaluating its future. And that future suddenly became uncertain. Questions about parts, resale value, long-term support, all started creeping into the decision. And when buyers start thinking about long-term risk instead of short-term value, they slow down. Even heavy discounts can't fix that kind of hesitation because the concern isn't price, it's confidence. Then you step into the electric side of the market, and this is where things become even more complicated because now you're not just dealing with price and positioning, you're dealing with trust in a completely new system. The Rivian R1T is a perfect example of this. It's an incredible machine by almost every measurable standard. Fast, powerful, technologically advanced, and designed to push boundaries. But the reality is that most truck buyers are not looking to experiment. They are looking for something that works every day without questions. And when you introduce a new technology that changes fueling, maintenance, and long-term ownership expectations, you introduce uncertainty. That uncertainty becomes even more significant when the price climbs into the $70,000 to $90,000 range. At that point, buyers aren't just asking if the truck is good, they're asking if it's worth the risk. Charging infrastructure is still inconsistent in many areas, range becomes unpredictable under heavy loads, and long-term battery performance remains something most buyers don't fully understand. So even though the R1T delivers on performance, it struggles with perception. And perception, in markets like this, matters just as much as reality. The same pressure applies to the Chevrolet Silverado EV, but in a slightly different way. Because this isn't a new company trying to prove itself, this is a legacy brand with decades of trust behind it. And yet, even that trust has limits when pricing and expectations move too far apart. The Silverado EV represents the future on paper, but in the showroom, it competes directly with its own gas-powered counterpart. And when buyers compare the two, they start asking practical questions. Why pay significantly more for something that introduces new uncertainties when the traditional version still delivers everything they need at a lower cost? For early adopters, the answer might be innovation or environmental considerations. But for the majority of buyers, the answer is simple economics. They choose what feels familiar, what feels safe, and what makes financial sense. And until electric trucks can match that equation more closely, they will continue to face resistance, even from buyers who are interested in the idea. Then there's the GMC Hummer EV, which takes everything we've discussed and pushes it to an extreme level. This truck isn't just expensive, it's in a completely different category of pricing and presence. It's massive, powerful, visually aggressive, and designed to stand out in every possible way. And it succeeds at that. People notice it, talk about it, and admire it. But admiration doesn't always translate into action. Because at a price point approaching or exceeding $100,000, the pool of potential buyers becomes very small. And those buyers are not just looking for capability, they are looking for something that justifies that level of spending emotionally and financially. The Hummer EV becomes more of a statement than a solution, and while statements generate attention, they don't generate consistent sales volume. Dealers experience this as high interest but low conversion, which creates a very specific kind of pressure where the product attracts attention but doesn't close deals. The Ford F-150 Lightning represents a different kind of challenge because it shows what happens when hype meets reality. When it was first announced, it felt like a turning point. The idea of the most popular truck in America going electric created massive excitement. Reservations flooded in, demand surged, and it looked like the beginning of a new era. But once the initial excitement passed and buyers started living with the truck, the limitations became more visible. Range under normal conditions might be acceptable, but when towing or driving long distances, that range drops significantly. Charging infrastructure varies widely depending on location, and charging time introduces a new kind of inconvenience that traditional truck owners are not used to. At the same time, prices increased, making the financial commitment even larger. And when buyers combine all of those factors, they start to reconsider. Not because the truck fails completely, but because it doesn't fully align with their expectations of what a truck should do without compromise. That gap between expectation and reality is where demand begins to fall. Looking at the Ram 1500, the issue shifts again, this time toward long-term ownership concerns. Ram has built a strong reputation for comfort and interior quality, often leading the segment in luxury features. But as prices climb into higher ranges, buyers begin to demand more than just comfort. They want reliability, consistency, and confidence that the truck will perform well over time. And when reports of electrical issues, transmission behavior, or unexpected maintenance costs start appearing, even if they are not universal, they influence perception. Buyers today have access to more information than ever before, and they use it. They read reviews, watch owner experiences, and compare long-term data before making decisions. And when the price is high, even small doubts can slow the buying process. Dealers feel this as longer decision cycles, more negotiation, and fewer impulse purchases. The Tesla Cybertruck introduces yet another dimension, and that is the gap between attention and adoption. Few vehicles in recent memory have generated as much discussion, curiosity, and online presence as the Cybertruck. Its design is unlike anything else on the road, and that uniqueness drives massive visibility. But visibility alone does not guarantee sales. Because when buyers move from curiosity to commitment, they start evaluating practical factors. Size, usability, pricing, build quality, and long-term support all become part of the equation. And while the Cybertruck excels at capturing attention, it faces challenges in converting that attention into consistent demand. Some buyers are drawn to its bold design, but others are pushed away by it. Some appreciate the innovation, while others question the practicality. And when a product creates that level of division, it limits its own market. Even the Ford F-150 in its traditional form is feeling pressure, particularly in its higher-end trims. For decades, it has dominated the market, setting the standard for what a full-size truck should be. But as pricing climbs into luxury territory, the decision becomes more complex for buyers. When a truck starts costing as much as a high-end SUV, people begin to compare options across categories. They evaluate comfort, utility, long-term value, and overall cost of ownership. And in many cases, they either step down to lower trims or delay the purchase entirely. High interest rates amplify this effect, turning what used to be a manageable payment into a significant financial commitment. And when buyers feel that pressure, they become more selective, which slows down sales even for the most established models. Finally, the Toyota Tundra highlights what happens when a brand built on trust faces unexpected challenges. Toyota's reputation for reliability has been one of its strongest assets for decades. Buyers didn't just choose Toyota for features, they chose it for peace of mind. The redesign of the Tundra introduced new technology and a shift in engine strategy, moving away from the traditional V8 to a twin-turbo V6. While this change brought improvements in efficiency and performance, it also introduced complexity. And with that complexity came issues, recalls, and concerns that were not typically associated with the brand. For most companies, this would be manageable. But for Toyota, the impact is deeper because it affects the core reason people buy their vehicles. When reliability is questioned, even slightly, it creates hesitation. And in a market where prices are already high, hesitation is enough to slow demand significantly. When you look at all of these examples together, a clear pattern emerges. This isn't about individual failures. It's about a market that pushed too far in multiple directions at once. Prices increased faster than buyer comfort levels. Technology introduced new uncertainties, and economic conditions made buyers more cautious. As a result, the balance shifted. Power moved away from sellers and back toward buyers. Dealers are no longer controlling the pace, they are reacting to it. And buyers are no longer rushing, they are evaluating. This change doesn't happen instantly, but once it begins, it reshapes the entire market. So what does this mean going forward? It means that the era of easy sales and constant demand is over, at least for now. It means that manufacturers will need to rethink pricing, positioning, and value if they want to maintain momentum. And it means that buyers, for the first time in years, have leverage. They can negotiate, compare, and wait without feeling like they are missing out. But it also means that decisions matter more than ever. Because in a shifting market, the difference between a good purchase and a bad one becomes more significant. Because in 2026, the truck market didn't just slow down, it recalibrated. And the people who understand that shift are the ones who will benefit from it the most.